and we put ourselves last, and we should put ourselves first. It's that 80-20 rule, right? If we focus taking care of ourselves 20% of the time, 80% of the time, we can be at a higher level as a mother, as an employer or an employee.
Financial independence,
freedom,
financial picture,
independent financially,
financial future,
financial freedom and wealth,
financial independence.
Get your fill, financial independence and long life. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Get Your Fill, Financial Independence and Long Life, where we explore ways to achieve those two goals. And guess who's here to help us today? Amanda Lemmage is going to tell us all about looking good while you're feeling good. She is a seasoned health coach. She's an aesthetic medical provider. She's helped countless individuals transform their lives through personalized coaching and guidance. And her approach is centered around creating a sustainable plan that works for your unique needs and lifestyle so you can achieve your goals and maintain them for the long term and have a long, healthy life, not just a long life, right? Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you for having me today.
So before we start it, let's just jump right into what everybody wants to hear is, how did you get into this and how did you decide to become an entrepreneur? And what were you like? Were you always entrepreneurial right out of the gate, or did you have a 9-to-5 sort of W-2 job before you jumped into this?
This wasn't my first rodeo, and I definitely worked in business healthcare and briefly in interior design, and wasn't a W-2 employee. And for myself, I just noticed I was very good at my job, but I needed more of a challenge. And I definitely am a hard worker. So I followed down those footsteps of becoming an entrepreneur easily, finding my passion. Because I noticed with the W-2 job, it was okay, but it wasn't something that was going to fulfill me long term, just needing more of a purpose. And I definitely have a calling to help others and help others feel better as well as look better. So that was really what guided me to this industry. And it's been very enjoyable. I was in this initially 2009, so it's been quite a while. And what's interesting is I worked in the field full time, and then when my son was born, I was able to work part time, which I loved. Being able to have evenings and weekends to work and definitely get some adult interaction while being an amazing mother, and having my son's dad have one-on-one time with my son. And that was great to have flexibility. And then once I was comfortable expanding my hours, I actually opened my own business through my home, through the license through the state. So it was great. I had flexibility, but I was still around rather than being gone 60 hours a week. It was hard to do that. And I'm a very much, motherhood was a time that was a chapter I wanted to be present, especially in the first 5 years. So that's a glimpse in, really how I got started. And it's just been ongoing for 25 some years. And I love what I do. And I just love being able to help others, as entrepreneurs, maybe not just in our industry, just to guide them and be a good leader for staff as well.
And I think so. A lot of people decide that they want to become entrepreneurs because of that. They want a flexible lifestyle. They want to be able to spend time with their families. But that doesn't, just wanting to be an entrepreneur is not really enough to actually be good at it. What do you think allowed you to succeed in being an entrepreneur and starting your own business?
I do think there's a small percentage that were maybe born with the will and desire. My mother was the same way when she worked professionally. She's retired now, but I think not knowing though, going in, when you start as an entrepreneur, you're going to fall forward, and falling forward is actually not a bad thing. It's good. So there's many learning experiences, things you have to learn along the way. A lot of it is trial and error, but finding a mentor. And I learned so much, and I enjoyed all of those processes. And, it takes a lot of patience and years of experience. And I think I did have a lot of patience. Motherhood will do that for you as well. And I just think I just wanted to always work for myself. I think when you can rely on yourself, that's not a bad thing, and I think I just always wanted a little bit more. And working for someone else, it's not the same feeling. I think being an entrepreneur, you're willing to work additional hours, or, I've worked 80 hours a week at some points. And I think when you're working for yourself, that's easier to do versus working for someone else 40 hours a week.
And I think one of the things that you said is so key, because some people fail and then they just say, oh, that's it. I'm no good at this, right? I'm just not cut out for this. But just knowing that this is okay. That was a good, good learning experience, right? Now we'll just move on and I won't make that mistake again. That attitude is so key to being able to stick with it as things aren't, right? As you have to learn things. You don't know everything going in, and just being able to say, I'm doing this thing and okay, oops, I made a mistake, right? I'm not going to know everything right out of the gate. So that's great. So
I
what
think
sorts of goals? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say like not attaching emotion, is really hard to do when you're new as an entrepreneur, newly entrepreneur. But it's important to just, look at it as a business and okay, this didn't work. Now we can move forward and know what we don't want to do. And like you said, it's hard. It can be challenging, but mindset is very, very key, staying positive.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have support from, you have like a support network that helped you to believe in yourself and stick with it?
I was starting out, really didn't have a lot of that. I had to create that. And for me, it was jumping on a board locally, getting, involved in the community. And quickly, I was able to find that support. And I think finding someone that has been successful was key as well. I mean, a lot of it I did have to create on my own, but I think finding someone that is smarter is a wise choice, not having to reinvent the wheel, someone that's already been successful. And that support is substantial, I think, for any new entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's talk about your business, the one that you're succeeding in even as we speak.
So I own a medical spa and I'm in Minnesota. We're in a prime community, which is on Lake Minnetonka area. And it's a really well-known location, desirable in Minnesota, which is great. And we have great clientele in our area. But we were in a previous location about not even 5 minutes away. And we've been where we are now. It's a state-of-the-art facility. We've been here 4 years in May, which is a great location. And we incorporate wellness as well as medical spa treatments, which I think is important. And I found, I've recently been featured in some magazines, Vanity Fair and Vogue, and received an award, most dedicated medical aesthetic spa owner in Minnesota. And I think the wellness piece is what brought me there. With incorporating that, it's so important, because you're healing your body from the inside out. And, yes, we do skin treatments, but a lot of it starts from the inside and it shows your skin will show what's going on the inside. And so I think the wellness piece is very important as much as doing some of the medical spa treatments.
Do you find any resistance with people? Because there is a somewhat of a mentality now that you just want to go someplace and, have somebody fix you while you're not doing, while you're reading a book or something. And I just wonder if people like, yeah, I could, eat differently or do this differently or go for a walk or something. But why don't you just, zap me and fix me or whatever?
I actually get a lot of great feedback. People are really excited because they see that we're knowledgeable and that I'm a health coach, and they're really open. But they have to be at a point when they walk in the door, they are through their own, physical journey. Maybe they're incorporating workout routines and not necessarily dieting, but just changing their lifestyle. And so the people that are coming in the door are really willing and able to listen and follow our advice, which is really exciting. And so it's fun. We synergistically work really well together when they're doing their part as well. And I definitely see a lot of people have a need because they just don't feel good. They just notice something needs to change. And, you seem to have a lot of options and they appreciate the knowledge that we have and expertise in whatever area they need to work on.
Yeah, it's true. You have to be ready. That's the key. If people are not, then you can talk to them all day and all night.
Right.
But then once you're like, yeah, I just don't feel good. I just want to feel better. And I'm willing to do something additional or something different in order to make that happen. Yeah,
Absolutely. It's a
absolutely.
good feeling. It's a good feeling.
Yeah. Do you have some like favorite stories of people who have transformed that you've helped to try to transform that you want to share with us?
I do. I have one that stands out that I really hold close to my heart because it really does make a big impact. I had a mother who had 5 children and she had gained an extreme amount of weight, unfortunately, and was going to nursing school. and she had a full plate, and she had a wonderful, supportive husband, but she had put on an excessive amount of weight and just, was only able to really wear like dresses, not even wearing pants wasn't an option for her. And typically with some of the fat slimming treatments we want to have them be a great candidate. They have to be within a certain zone that we will see successful results. But I was actually willing to help her and I was able to, and she lost 6 inches around her waistline. And I remember the day she came in the first day, she was so embarrassed just to show me the area and she was in tears, and I just kind of, I think my energy is very important too. But I just said, you know what, I can help you. I know what you're going through, and I'm so sorry that you're going through this and how you feel. And she was just at ease and so happy that there was an option for her, and for her to just be able to feel different and just feel a little bit better about herself. It was really for her. It wasn't for anyone else.
Yeah,
And just what that can do, to feeling insecure in your own body is really a tough place to be. And so that's one
absolutely.
that really stood out and still does. I think it's really helpful to have some of those occurrences and know that, I'm here for a reason and we're here to help people. It's a great feeling. It's very gratifying and very rewarding.
Absolutely. And I know I can imagine, right? I don't know because I don't have any kids, but I can imagine with 5 kids that it's hard to put time away just for yourself and say, okay, I'm gonna, I know I've heard moms say that, they feel selfish if they're doing something that's just for them and they feel like that they should be putting all their effort and all their time and energy into their kids. But you have to feel, right? Put on your own ear mask, right? Feed yourself first. You have to take care of yourself in order to be better for your
Mm.
family, more available and not resentful of them and stuff.
I think it's so hard in our culture. It's just accustomed. And unfortunately, we feel guilty. And I try to plant the seed, if you will, for some patients and clients, just, introducing them to maybe it's just a sauna session, a steam room session. It doesn't have to be a whole spa day, doing the massage and facial and all that. But it is unfortunate that we have to feel that way, and we put ourselves last and we should put ourselves first. It's that 80-20 rule, right? If we focus taking care of ourselves 20% of the time, 80% of the time, we can be at a higher level as a mother, as an employer or an employee. And I think that can be really hard for mothers. They say it's equal to being a mother is like 2.5 full-time jobs, two full-time jobs and a part-time job, and especially being in nursing school on top of that, I cannot even imagine. That's an undertaking for anyone.
Absolutely. I know with no kids and just, yourself to worry about, it's hard to get through nursing school, never mind all the other responsibilities that she had. So kudos to her. I can see why that would be a great success story for you.
Thank you.
What kinds of things do people typically come to you for? Like what sorts of problems do people a lot of time, or what would you say is a problem that people, the majority of the time, or whatever, something that you either enjoy fixing or that seems to be a common complaint or situation that people come in with?
Definitely for men and women, it's the aging, unfortunate aging. When they look in that mirror, that one day they look in the mirror and it's like, I don't recognize myself. Is there anything you can do to soften this look a little bit? I don't want to look 21, but I do need to do something. And I need to incorporate some of the medical spot treatments. And it's not always starting with Botox injections. We can do great laser treatments. It's different for everyone. So it's really fun to be able to consult with them. And we look at what their lifestyle looks like. What are their goals, long-term goals? What are they looking to achieve? But specifically, we hand them a mirror and just say, tell us what your concerns are. And then we go from there. And so it's fun to be able to make a customized game plan for everyone that's unique to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is something that I know I'm not alone in this aging thing. Um,
You
but
look
I know, I
fantastic.
mean, I've talked to people 20 years younger than me who are feeling the same way. So that it just, I think, I don't know when it starts, 26 or something, I think you start feeling fairly young, thinking, oh, well, this is
Yeah.
changing. Like now I have these kind of jowly things. I'm like, well, where did that come from? But
Hmm.
what I do have, which I want to just add, I don't know if anyone else has this problem, but I was in a place the other day and it seemed like they might have some kind of way to fix it. But I have like a lipoma on my back It's just
Hmm.
like, which is like a blob of fat that just sort of like is
Yeah.
sitting on my back in a weird random
Hmm.
place. And I don't know, aside from like, I mean, I don't know really. What I've read is you can have like liposuction, but it could come back. I don't know. Do you have any sort of thoughts about that? Completely
Honestly, just,
selfishly here.
yeah, it's very common. It's like a fat deposit that can form. It's not as rare as you think, but it's definitely something that a plastic surgeon would have to do. And a lot of times, if you're already going in, and not everybody's someone to go under the knife, but if you're doing another surgery, cosmetic, they would take care of that for you. And it's not necessarily always liposuction, but you would have a consultation and they would be able to tell you depending on the size. But I wish it's something that we could do. But I've had some patients have that same scenario, and it's just interesting how it can form, later in life. And so, but it's quite simple for a plastic surgeon to take care of. But I think it would be wise if you're doing something else, that you need to have done. Why not include that at the same time?
Yeah. Yeah. Just have that, throw that on there with my nose job or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, what's your favorite part about your business?
Being a great leader, I think is wonderful. It's a great feeling making an impact for employees that have come in that haven't maybe had always a good environment to work in, and getting great feedback from them, and just the appreciation of what I'm bringing to the table for them, and just educating them, training them, and showing them that they are valued as an employee, but also just wanting to take the time to be a good coach and be a great leader. That's something I feel like you can't put a price tag on that. And it's definitely, I've gotten great feedback from some staff that they've worked in the industry, and even if it's a gift, if it's something I've given them, you know, once a year, I've had great feedback that, they said I've never been given such a great gift, or just been thoughtful, someone going out of their way for me. And that's a great feeling too. But I couldn't imagine not doing that. It's just
Mm.
important. I think we've all been in that scenario, right? Working for an employer that you feel like a number, you don't necessarily feel like a person
Yeah.
that's valued. And just showing more appreciation, I think, is so important. And it's not just about the fact that they will do more, but I just think it's important to be respectful and be a good leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you Did you ever have, I know one of the things that entrepreneurs struggle with, and this has certainly been my case as well, is hiring people who are really good, right? People who are as good in real life as they are on paper or on their interview. Did you have any challenges, or do you have any sort of tips for people when they're just starting to hire people?
I've definitely had a learning experience with that one. When it's just you and you're really excited to bring someone else in. For me, I learned the hard way that you do need to go slowly with that. And I would hire too fast and do one interview, and found you can really sell yourself in the interview, and you really don't get to know a whole lot about that person. And it is still always a risk. You don't know when you're hiring someone, whether the resume looks great, but just as a person, their personality, their character. And I feel like I've learned you hire character, you definitely can train skill. And with me now, in the past, several years, I incorporate a 3-step interview process. So the initial interview is just an introduction, really, it's just an introduction of them. And then I have them come in for a technical interview, and that may be whatever industry that may be in. There's a way, to do a technical interview. And I think that's really important. And then a third interview to talk about their aspirations, their goals, really letting them be, the leader in that conversation of telling me what they're looking for. And I think that's really important too, to know that it would be a good fit for them or
Mhm.
not. And definitely checking references. Again, just being too excited to hire and just bringing them on board. It's hard, because it's very hard to find good quality individuals. And I think definitely when you have a similar vision, that's very important, and someone that aligns with your value system as well. And it's still
Yeah.
going to be hard to know in the first 90 days, having the probationary period. Having an employee handbook is very important. It can be, for someone that's smaller, just getting that created from the get go, I think, is very helpful.
Yeah, that's great advice, because you're right, especially the first couple of people who you hire, right? you've got all this expectation of them. They might not have a clear-cut job, right? It might be just like, do some of the stuff that I've been doing, right? Help me with this
Mhm.
stuff or whatever. And if they're not enthusiastic or if they're not go-getters or, right, I working with people, even if I wasn't the one to hire them, who, in other jobs where they just need you to, like, they'll sit there and you give them a task. Okay, do this. And when they're done, they just sit there and wait for you to walk over and give them another task. I like to
The worst feeling. I've had it. It's very hard.
yeah. And as an entrepreneur, you're like, seriously?
I've actually had I'm very, I tend to be, I have a hard time with conflict, but, I've had it a couple of times just say, if there's nothing else that you can find, I'll just allow you to clock out and you can go home. And then they might find some work to do. But it's just like, yeah, and I just don't sit at all. And so I always find there's always something to do, right? And
Yeah.
that's never been my style. So it's hard
No,
when you see
exactly. You're
that.
like, wait, I just don't understand you. Like just the boredom aspect, right? Like just sit there and wait for someone to walk over and give you a job. Or like,
I know.
yeah, it's hard for us to understand.
Mhm.
If you weren't doing this, what do you think you'd be doing? Is there anything else that really lights you up that would, you think that you'd pursue if for some reason you weren't doing your med spa?
I love music. That is something I always, grew up learning to play piano, and I would like to, delve into that a little bit more when my hours reduce. I just enjoy music. I think it's very spiritual, but it's very healing too, and I just love being able to share that.
That's great. I love that. What other, do you have any specific advice for people who might be going into the beauty industry or the spa, thinking of opening a spa?
Mhm. I think it's very important to, as you kind of mentioned earlier, finding that right environment. Because working in my industry, I knew it was going to take experience, and I worked at a few different spas or salons initially just to get in that atmosphere. And I will say, the average statistic in our industry, most people may get into two different clinics or spas and just it wasn't a good fit, and they just give up and decide I'm done with this career. And I think just not giving up and just staying dedicated to finding the right environment, because it's out there. And I think it's important, if you find that it's, not feeling like it's aligning with you and you want to do more of the entrepreneurial role, just, hang with it and get the experience in. But I think it's so key to just not give up. And we're all, and no matter what industry we're in, we're going to run into snags. We're going to run into scenarios that are not fun. But I think not losing your vision is very key.
Yeah, that's great advice. Like you say, no matter what industry you're going forward, if this is what you want to do, don't give up. Just keep figuring out, right? Stick with it. Okay, these two spas didn't work, or these two things I tried didn't work, but I'm going to just try something else, right? A third thing, third time's a charm, or whatever. Maybe it's the fifth time's a charm.
Absolutely. I
But
think
yeah,
it's important.
absolutely. How do you find it now, like juggling? Well, your son's 21, right? So you're not
Hmm.
juggling any kind of, you have other family. Well, you did. You just had a very big family thing that you had to kind of juggle. How do you manage that?
Well, as an entrepreneur, it's great to be able to have flexibility if I need to, and I had to take some time off to help my mom through her medical scare. It was very scary, but it was important to have staff and help that, with my leadership being gone, just letting them take the lead, which was hard when I'm not present. But having that flexibility, there is something to be said about being an entrepreneur and being on your own, because if you do need to take more time, you have the option. It may not always be convenient or the best for your business, but it can be temporary. And for me, just finding work-life balance is really key. I did actually focus on, expanding, growing when my son was older, and I really wanted to be that nurturing, hands-on mother when he was in his child rearing years. I feel like that first 5 years you can't get back, but I
Yeah.
still worked in my field. I was even self-employed, but I just wasn't at this level. And so I love being able to create whatever works. Everyone's a little bit different. I like to work a lot. I enjoy what I do. But when I am with my family, I am present, and I had to find that was not a healthy habit in the past when you're trying to grow a business. And, when you find yourself just a minute, I'll be right there. Or, you're really not hearing what's going on around you because you're so focused head down. I think that is hard, and it's appropriate to have that working extra hours temporarily to put something in place, but then recognizing, stepping back and saying, okay, now I need to put this down a little bit. I need to do with what's healthy within reason. There is definitely, the workaholic syndrome that I fell into. And so finding work-life balance, it is really important. And I just find I perform at such a higher level when I do take the time to take care of me first, and I preach self-care here, so I have to practice what I preach, but it is so important. It's not even for me, it's a necessity. It's not a luxury. It's required. And if I don't do that, I can tell, and I'm not performing. And especially as an employer, if you have employees you're managing, they're going to know too. And you just don't want to have that bad energy where you're burnt out. There's a burnout mode, and recognizing that and being able to step back and say, okay, I need to take a break. Breaks are okay. Doesn't mean you're giving up, doesn't mean you're quitting. But sometimes being isolated, if you need to, just take a couple weeks off, whatever it is. But if you reach that burnout mode, it's really important to recognize that, because we could be making some errors that are not able to be made up. You don't want to run into that.
Absolutely. Well, and that's a big part of it, because when things happen, if you're not sort of rested, if you're not at 100%, things just seem so much worse than they are, right? Things are more overwhelming, and your ability to deal with things quickly and sort of pivot is lessened, right? But just because you're just not firing on all cylinders. So absolutely echo that. And some of my best ideas come when I'm on vacation, or I'm like, I have to totally disconnect from the office. And then I'm just like, oh, right. You're just in a more creative mode, and you come up with some great ideas that will make you money when you get back. So
isn't that incredible? I've had that same great feeling, and it's inspiring to myself, because that's when you have the creative mind, and when you're out of your typical environment. And sometimes when I hit a wall and I'm like, I need something new to evolve, being on vacation helps me so much. And it's a great feeling when things come to you.
yeah. And it's a great lesson or a reminder for entrepreneurs that, what is Abraham Lincoln said, if I have, 6 hours to cut down a tree, I'm going to spend the first 5 sharpening my axe, right? And that's really, we have to do that. Don't just keep hacking away at the tree with the dull axe.
Exactly.
I don't think that's the way the quote goes, but that's the
Well,
gist
it's
of it.
like if you if you're doing the same thing but expecting different results, right?
Yep, the
It's
definition
like
of
banging your
insanity.
head against a wall. Like, it's not going to change.
Exactly. Like, why isn't this working? I'll try it again. Like, no, it's still not going to be working. So, is there anything that you really want us to talk about that I just haven't thought to hit on, or that I haven't brought up?
I've incorporated some of the coaching, wellness coaching, and that's been really exciting. So, uh, we have the functional medicine within our practice here, but I'm doing on my own as well. Just launched that, so it's something that is great to have as a virtual visit versus in person.
Mhm.
And so that's been really fun to be able to help so many. And there can be many different things that, like for myself, my blueprint that I was born with, I don't detox well. My body doesn't absorb nutrients well. And I found my hormone levels were off balance. And so just going through it myself, my own personal journey, seeing how much I can help other people. And maybe it's, the gut issues, cortisol levels can be affected, and that can make a huge difference in your day-to-day life. Maybe that's brain fog, or, migraines or fatigue, and just some other autoimmune disorders. I do help people get started on just a jumpstart kit. Maybe it's a detox that they need to do, and there's different forms of detoxing. And so that's been really fun to launch. And, I have my own website as well, meetamandalamage.com, and talks a little bit more about my speaking journey that I'm doing, and podcasting as well. And I just love being able to be a great mentor to other entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. How do you find out, excuse me, how do you just discover that someone, for example, how did you find out that you didn't detox well?
So it's definitely starts with testing. And the testing is not done at our traditional doctor, Western medicine clinic.
Right.
And it's unfortunate because you'll go in, I had the same scenario, like, there's nothing wrong with you, you're fine. And you're like, well, I don't feel fine. And so what I found is functional medicine, it's considered controversial, unfortunately, in America. It's a little bit more of a hush hush, but it is something that it's life changing. Even my OB doctor said to me, how did you find a functional medicine doctor? Because we're looking to hire those credentials. They don't know how to help women
Wow.
going through menopause or whatever. For men, same thing, different hormone levels can be really challenging. And so what's great is with the functional medicine, we work with two great companies. They're backed by science and they're at the highest level of efficacy. And we test based on the symptoms initially. So it requires, in person, we do a consultation once a year, but the virtual consultations based on the symptoms, then we can order the appropriate tests from there. And it's not overwhelming. It doesn't have to be so complex. It's really quite simple. When you see the test results, and then we can see, whether for me, myself, like the hormone levels that are off balance and my cortisol was at an unsafe level. And then we can go from there and introduce the appropriate steps that are needed. Everyone's going to be a little bit different, and for me, it starts out opening the drainage pathways, because that's where it starts too. If your body's not detoxing and you're just not feeling well, opening the drainage pathways is kind of a great place to start, and upregulating mitochondria. And that's usually a great starting place. And then we can get into more specialized, programs as needed, like maybe a parasite cleanse. I mean, unfortunately, most of us have parasites, and that can affect, a lot of things, even the brain, and some of the wellness things that we can incorporate as well.
So how would that differ from a test that your traditional doctor would do? So why didn't your doctor realize that your cortisol levels were off? That seems like something that a doctor
Mhm.
could find if they were looking.
Fortunately, their testing doesn't allow for cortisol levels. This is a larger lab, so it's a larger lab. There's a few of them out there in our nation, and you actually have it's not covered by insurance, unfortunately. That's one reason they don't test for that. And so it's a specialized lab, and it's a saliva test for cortisol. That's not something the regular MD does in Western medicine. And so then when we send that in to the specialized lab, they're able to get really precise. Again, it's very well done. Engineering and technology is much more advanced nowadays, and it's important to work with some of the leaders in that industry that are committed, to the highest level of testing.
So people come to you and you gather the whatever they need in order to do the test and then send it off to the lab.
Correct, exactly. And then we have them work with a doctor, and that's what's really great. And it's a process, and that was for myself. It can be a little overwhelming because it's foreign. So it can take 2 to 3 months. Initially we do the consultation, the lab results take about 3 weeks. Then we do a follow-up appointment, and then getting the implementation of whatever it may be. Maybe it's hormone therapy, maybe it's supplementing what your body is deficient in. Maybe it's a detox, again, and the body has to be ready for whatever we're doing, and we get the body ready. And then you have to have those drainage pathways open, but also it's a little bit of, your body has to absorb whatever we're doing, and that can take a good 9 months, up to 9 months even for myself to fully have a change. But even the first 90 days, I noticed myself, it just takes that time. And it's a little bit more in depth, when we work one-on-one we can explain kind of how that works with the body.
Yeah. Well, what you're talking about, opening the drainage pathways, how do you do that? Is that something that somebody can just accomplish on their own, or does it require a higher level of treatment?
There's different facets of opening your drainage pathways, but it's really important to do what we offer at our clinic. Infrared sauna is one way, because when you sit in the infrared, it's different than the dry heat sauna. You actually emit nitric oxide, and it penetrates through the skin, and it actually will help upload oxygen to in your blood, which that is one way. It's really important because you don't really notice until you feel different, how much better you feel. But upregulating mitochondria, and that's something that many people haven't heard of maybe, but it's so important to, you have to start there. And because our body, it's the same with like if you have a thyroid deficiency, if you're not upregulating mitochondria and you're taking thyroid medication, your body can't absorb what we're trying to do. And so we work with specialized companies that are really at the highest level. We see, just recently we've incorporated in some of the newer products that we've been working with. We've seen the highest level of results with that. And it's really simple. It's not hard. It's not complex, but it's just really, everyone's maybe at a different level. So some are, we were not going to, just start with a high level of what they're needing, just starting at the appropriate level, because there's different forms that we can introduce to the body.
Wow. So interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Amanda, how can people get in touch with you if they want to start on this really cool journey with you?
My website, meetamandalamage.com, we have a contact us form, and you can start there. And I also have an Instagram page, Amanda Lemmage, and you can see a little bit more about what I'm doing. And I would love to do a complimentary 10-minute consultation with anyone to see if coaching is something that would work for them, or, whether it's from the entrepreneurial aspect and leadership there, or if it's a wellness, coaching, whatever plethora of what they're needing.
Excellent. Thank you. That's very generous. And we'll put those links in the show notes. Um, anything in parting that you want to make sure that people walk away with?
Well, I just think right now our world is a little heated out there, and I think it's important to stay, as hard as it may be. I have a strong faith, and I just don't know how I could do life without it. But just staying positive, and I think just having a faith in your life is key. If you haven't done it, maybe consider it, because I think there's a lot going on out there right now, and just staying positive and incorporating any kind of wellness routine, just starting with, even if it's 10 minutes a day of, quiet space, alone, meditating, something like that can be pretty life-changing. It was for me.
Yeah, that's super advice. You're right. Just to come quiet your mind and just sort of have a chance to bring things back to a neutral place instead of just always being, and don't start the day with with the news on.
Exactly. I start with meditation. I have
Yeah,
to.
definitely. Much better way to start the day.
Sets the tone,
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much, Amanda. It was really great meeting you, and I'm really excited for all the things that you're doing. And thanks for all the tips that you shared for our budding entrepreneurs out there. And
Oh,
thank
thank
you,
you.
listeners, for listening. We really appreciate your time. And I know that we would both appreciate your sharing this with a couple of your friends who would like some tips on either entrepreneur or their body and wellness. And your friends will appreciate you also. And then be sure to join us again next week. Remember, all of Amanda's links are going to be in the show notes. So go ahead, be sure to check her out and take advantage of that free 10-minute consultation. Have a great one.